All right. Good morning, everybody. My name is Sam Yuzvicic. I'm very honored and happy that I can present to you the Foundations of Health program I'm putting together for the teachers and students for Heritage High School. To breathe better, live better, and have conscious health for peak performance. So, just a quick overview of our presentation. I want to share with you, what are we doing? Why is this important? Who am I and why am I doing this? I want to talk a lot about stress and anxiety and how it affects not just the physical body, the mental body as well, the human mind body connection. We're going to talk about what is health, conscious breathing, the power of meditation, emerging sciences, and we're going to have a little Q&A at the end. So one thing I will ask, if you have like a little pen and paper handy, or maybe on your phone taking some notes, because there are going to be a couple times I'm going to ask you to write something down, because this is going to be an interactive presentation where I want to get you really thinking. I want to get your minds open and really see what we're doing, because this is not just going to be for the students. I think this is going to be just as powerful for the teachers as well. So the purpose of this program and what I want to accomplish over this semester is to really create a fun and engaging atmosphere to educate and motivate those students and teachers to take actions towards improving their physical and mental health. To understand the complexity of the human body and mind, how they work together, learn the significance of the breath and how one can control their body and mind through it, but also mainly to inspire change by giving hope. This is a brief little overview of what I want to really do with this program. And we're going to talk a little bit more about what that's going to detail. But I want to let you know, really, who am I? My name is Sam. Like I said, I have a degree in exercise and rehabilitative sciences. I was a college football player. I grew up here in Loudoun County. I was a athlete my entire life. Track, football, played a little hockey, all of that. But honestly, it was no different than anyone here. Like, I struggled with weight loss my entire life. I was a big dude. As you see some of my older pictures there, I was like, 280, 300 pounds playing football. I thought because I was an athlete, that was okay. But, it's like I wasn't healthy. I was fit, but I was not healthy. So one of the things I'm going to talk about is that difference of what is true health. I've had low self-esteem issues. I've had anxiety. I've faced depression. I've also had many surgeries, and I've also fought through cancer. So that's going to be a little story I'm going to talk about really and share what I've went through and how I've learned so much from that no book could have taught me. And that's something I want to share with you all, is my cancer journey. From being a health and fitness nut after college, when I became, left that old lifestyle behind of, just being an athlete, and I wanted to learn what it was to be healthy. And about 2 years ago, I was diagnosed with cancer. And before that, I was just a normal guy. I started my own business. I was doing great. I was really contributing. But, just like many of us, sometimes life hits us. And for 6 months there, I didn't really know what was going on. I was getting a lot of irregularities in my body, physical wise, deficiencies in nutrients, even though my diet was perfect considered to normal standards. But I faced a lot of mental health issues because of that. And I didn't realize at the time that a lot of that was affecting my brain. And I went through this period of time where, before I actually got diagnosed, my body was beaten down. I was waking up super tired. I didn't really know what was going on. And when I learned that I had cancer, I had a decision to make. It was, okay, well, now we know what this is. You can either, one, let this take you, or you can go the other route and fight it. And it was all a mindset. And that's something that I want to teach throughout this program, is the power of choice, to make a decision, to be who you want to be, to take action, take control of your health, take control of your life. Because in the beginning, like, I did not have insurance covering my medical bills. I'd lost everything. So not only was I, in a deep depression before that, but in the beginning of my journey, I could not get medical treatment. I had to take matters into my own hands. And that's when I went back to the drawing board and I really studied nutrition, the power of food, vitamins, minerals, the right types of supplements that the body needs that it can't always get from food. Fitness. I always believed that fitness was, the fountain of youth, the thing that gave us, energy, gave us life. But I was like, okay, now I have to train for my body and train with my cancer to work with it. And then also I learned about breathing. I learned about hormones. I learned about a lot of different things that I knew before, but it's not until you're thrust into that position that you really, again, it was, for me, it was do or die. And luckily, a month later, after I started this whole, educational program, and I started my nonprofit called Fitness Fights Cancer, I found a loophole, started to get treatment. But I decided during that, I was like, you know what, I'm going to make something of this. And, these pictures below, 2 days before my final chemo treatment, I competed in a bodybuilding competition to showcase to the medical community, the doctors I was working with, but also to share this journey of hope. And we raised a lot of money for children's cancer. We spread the word how health and fitness, and mostly the mind can really determine, the amazing things that we do in life. And that's what I want to share with the students and with you teachers. So why is this important? I'm not going to go through each little one specifically, but we know that, there's a lot of alarming statistics about mental health. It used to be a big stigma. It's starting to be more open, but the use of these, antidepressants, drugs, how they've increased over the years. 1 in 3 people from ages 13 to 18 will be diagnosed with an anxiety disorder. Up to 1.2 million people will die of suicide worldwide this year, potentially 1.5 million. And that was actually estimations for the last year, not given the certain circumstances that we were even under. I work with a lot of different health professionals, and even at our local hospital, they say that the psychiatric ward has had record high numbers this year. It is an epidemic that I feel is, just as big as anything else. But even before COVID happened, the mental health crisis was much bigger than we all wish to admit. And it's something that I believe we do have power over. But we first have to understand, we have to understand it. We have to understand the human body and how it works. Because again, this is something that I've faced, and I've faced it with adversity. I've been in there in the darker times, and it's like, there are things that we can do. And there's, a couple other statistics I brought up, like cardiovascular disease. That is the #1 killer in America. Diabetes. There are a lot of things that we can take control of, and it all starts with us. So, real quick quote, and I'm going to bring up this guy a little bit later when we talk about the Harvard Buddhist studies. Ben Shapiro, many people don't respond to frontline interventions. If we look down a little bit, there's a need for alternative approaches. This guy, he was, again, psychiatry at Harvard Medical School, psychologist at Massachusetts General Hospital, depressional clinic, very prestigious guy in this field. And many will tell you the best in what they do is like, there's not one way to do something. Not everybody responds just to certain, drugs or to certain, again, even nutrition. And this is going to be an area, a topic that you're going to see it's going to come up again and again. Because how do we make change? There's no one plan fits all. Just like I was talking about before, one of you, maybe the Atkins diet worked for you. Maybe keto worked for this person, but it didn't work for you. You tried this. So I take a very individual approach. Your formula for success is based on you as an individual. It begins with a mindset. No change is made just by hoping that something's going to happen. You have to take control. It all begins with a desire to make a change. Because here's the thing, and we're all individuals. There's nobody in the world. You have over 100 billion neural connections in your brain. You have over 3 trillion different bacteria cells in your gut, for good and for bad. Again, your DNA, your epigenetics. There's no one in the world with your imprint who's exactly like you. And for that, there is no one plan fits all. And that's something that, when we understand how the body works, we make our own formula for success. But again, there's all, like Dr. Google is out there. You have a million, you can search up all these different diet plans, all these different rehab plans. what actually works? Because 10 doctors say this thing, other doctors say that this guy's wrong, but they say they're right. Where does it actually, who is right? And the answer is none of them, all of them and none of them, because each have a little piece of the puzzle. But my point with that being is, if you want to make that change, it has to start with you. You have to have a desire to, I'm going to figure out what's going on and I'm going to make that change for myself. And whatever I have to go through, I'm going to push through. Inspiration versus motivation. This is another thing. It's like, having a desire is great, but what is going to get you out of bed? What is going to get you moving? What is going to get you the blood flowing in the morning? That's going to get you out of bed and just like really be excited about the day. Be excited to take action, to jump in on this computer and teach these kids. What's going to really get you out of it? Because inspiration versus motivation, we all, like, this is the beginning of the year. You guys have maybe done this in the past. Okay, I'm going to make these New Year's resolutions. We're motivated for the first month. Something happens. Okay, we slowly drop off. Okay, it was just one time, no problem, but it happens again. Why does that happen with motivation? Because motivation is a very superficial thing. Motivation can give you that little pump in the beginning, and not saying it's bad, it's a little supercharge, but it's like it's not going to take you that far. It's not going to get you where you want to go versus inspiration. Inspiration is something that comes from within, not outside. So when we set the expectation, when we set the expectation, enjoy the process. A lot of times we fail in that journey, especially when it comes to health. It's because, we think that it's going to be a very linear line. We think it's going to be a very linear line, and that it's nothing, that we're not going to face adversity. That, okay, I made these goals, and, but the problem is, like, this is what success really looks like. You're going to have your failures, and that's okay. It's accepting your failures, learning from them, and moving on. It's how can we get from point A to point B, and it'll never be a linear line. So the first moment we accept that is going to be when we start to make that real progress for a lifelong change. Because it's easy to make a change for maybe a week or a month, or to make a new habit, but how do you make something permanent in your mind? A new habit, the new version of you that you want to create. So start with your what, then find your why. So motivation versus inspiration. The motivation is, what do I want? So let's do a couple of examples here. Now, I'm going to use physical health because, again, this is my profession. I own a gym. I've done this for many years. So it's like, I talk with people about this all the time. And this is a topic that's very interesting to me because there's a lot of successful people that struggle with their health. There's, all ends of the spectrum. And it's like, because we don't treat physical health like the way we treat other areas of our life that we can be successful in. So that motivation is, what do you want? Let us use, again, physical health as an example. What does the end goal look like to you? What does your physique look like? Maybe your strength levels, maybe your endurance. Maybe it's okay. Like, oops, I don't know why this is really sensitive on that click. How does that feel? How do your clothes fit? What are your energy levels like? Are you pain-free? Clearly define that. So back in that success model that I showed you, point A to point B, if you don't have a clear point B of what you want, you are not going to get there. You might accidentally reach that, like, part of that destination, but now what happens for the rest of your life? Are you going to keep that? How do we make permanent change? How can we, again, not so much trick our mind, it's more of training our brain for success. So clearly define what you want. And this is going to be something I would like you all to do. And it's like, write out your goals for each area of your life. And if you want to start with something simple, start with your physical health. It's the new year. We're here to make big changes. Write out, what does that goal look like to you? Again, even if you have to put down the scale, I hate using the scale. But if you need something visually, okay, maybe I want to fit into this size dress that I used to wear. Maybe I want to be able to walk up and down the steps without being out of breath. I'm tired of waking up and getting out of bed being in pain. Now, we start with this what, and we get to the why. Finding that internal inspiration. Clearly define, what is your why? Why is it important that you're healthy? Why do you want the body that you do? It doesn't even have to, if it's not even for you, think of somebody else. And I'm going to explain that in a second. So I'm going to use an example. Why do you need to change your habits? And then the other powerful inspiration, because we always go to pleasure or pain. What happens if I don't change my ways? So I'm going to use, my mom is a great example. Mom, sorry to embarrass you, but many of you have known her for many years. She has made an amazing change with her physical body and her health. And this, I'm 30 years old right now, and this is probably the most fit, most healthy she's ever been in my entire life. And again, she's tried every diet under the sun. She did workout plans, all this stuff. She's tried everything, Pilates, yoga, trying to do a mixture of things, but nothing really worked because we didn't really tackle this. We started with the body instead of starting with the mind. So there's a question I had to ask her. This was a few years ago. It was, do you want to be there and be able to play with your grandchildren when they're born? What happens if you don't get healthy? Do you want to do these things with your grandkids? Like, finding that internal inspiration. There's one of the guys I'm going to be bringing up in our personal development program over the semester is Ed Milet. And he had an amazing story where he was actually at his godfather's funeral, who died of a heart attack in his late 50s. And on his way back on the plane, he saw this ad for it was a new actually, I was on Oprah Winfrey show. She was talking about this new program at this institute that could look inside your arteries and be able to determine, like, without being super invasive, if you're at risk for a heart attack. So he goes to this institution. The guy, he does a scan when he comes back in, and doctor first talks to him, and it's like he didn't tell him, okay, you're going to need to take this drug, this drug, this drug. He started with something different. He started with his why. So he's like, Ed, I need to sit down with you. I want to ask you a few questions. And he's like, based off what I saw, you have the arteries of someone who's 20 years older than you. And he's like, okay, well, doc, what do I need to do? He's like, well, first, let me ask you, he's like, your wife has a baby on the way. It's a daughter. Like, do you want to be the guy that walks her down the aisle? Or do you want someone else to do that for her? And he's like, geez, doc, man, you're coming at me pretty hard. He's like, well, let me ask you another. Like, do you want to be there when your son graduates from high school, graduates from college? And he was like, man, like, what's going on with this scan? Am I going to, like, die or something? He's like, no, I'm trying to drill a point in. It's like, I can tell you what to do, but if you don't know why you're doing it, you're not going to change your lifestyle. You're not going to make it. And I know that sounds dramatic, but that's true. And you might have known somebody, because I'm in this business of health, and I've seen what happens to people when they don't take care of their bodies and minds over a period of time. And it's like, I didn't want that for my parents. And that's why I clearly really made that a point to them. It's like, we need to get healthy. And the moment we decided to make that mindset shift, that's when her life, both of them have lost a lot of weight, but again, they have more energy. They're moving better. That is their inspiration. And now that the grandchild is there, he's about a year old now. And again, mom, she had to take care of him when my sister was quarantined after he was born. She wouldn't have been able to do that if she didn't take care of her health, but she did it before it happened. She was prepared for that moment. So now that we have a desire to change now that we have a want and a desire to change, now we have to understand the machine we run every day. The body and mind works. So what is health? I'm going to start with what's called the applied kinesiology triad of health. There is the structural body, the chemical body, and mental health, or the mental body. So in this triad, the three different sides, each one directly correlates with the other. So our first side is our structure. This is our muscles, our bones, our tendons, ligaments, our neuromuscular system, our organs. It is all the physical things that are actually, again, holding us up, keeping the machine moving. Sorry. Chemical side is the metabolism, our cardiorespiratory system, the endocrine system, our hormones, any chemical process that is happening inside of the body. And then the third side is our mental health. And this is going to be another topic, we're going to go really deep into later on, but we really actually have three little brains inside of our body. The brain itself, the heart, and the gut, or microbiome. So how does this all work, and how does each side directly connected to the next? Because when one is affected, any one of these areas, you will see a direct correlation and effect on the other two. So here's a couple examples. So think of stress. You know, we're all facing stress in this world right now. You know, we have an outside stress stimulus. You know, the easiest example is cortisol. We've all heard of cortisol. Weakened immune system is actually one of them, but weakened tendons, ligaments, muscles. Our metabolism shuts down. We have an increase in neurological fatigue when we are stressed. Again, it is a mental thing. You know, we can literally sit here and think about something going on outside in the world that is, you know, either terrible, horrible, like something that's happened in our past, and we can get stressed out and we can increase those like just by thought alone. So let's look at a different side of the triangle, starting with a respiratory issue. Let's say mouth breathing, you know, breathing issues. If we're constant mouth breathers, or again, if you have sleep apnea at night and you're not taking care of that, you know, we snore a lot. We're going to have either too much oxygen or too little to the brain, causing an inflammatory response. Anxiety attack, you know, you're more susceptible to depression. You know, when our oxygen and CO2 balances are out of whack, the rest of the machine is off as well. And again, this could literally be a subject we do a whole semester just on this, which we're going to be doing this a little bit each day because it is so important. If there's one thing I can give you, the single most important thing that you can change with your health right now, before exercise, before nutrition, before any of that, learn how to breathe through your nose. And I'm going to teach you how to do that later in this presentation. But breathing is the single most important thing. If you change that, you can change your life, right like this. Leaky gut is another one. You may have heard of that. You know, if you have leaky gut, there's over 16 different things that can be affected from leaky gut. You know, one of them is an autoimmune response. You know, we can have nutrition deficiencies. When we have that, because think about it, if we have a nutrition deficiency in our gut, 90% of our serotonin, the happy feelings in our gut, you know, they're affected by that, those receptors itself. So again, brain and mental function decrease due to low, sorry, this is blocking my way, low fuel and fighting off, and basically that outside invader of the body, which an autoimmune response is really attacking something that they think is, again, a pathogen, but it's really, again, something that we're eating that our body is attacking and is really not meant to. So there's so many other things that basically leaky gut can affect our mental health, physical health in many different ways. So stress, the silent killer. There's one thing in this world that basically I'd say when we look at all the top, you know, numbers for, you know, most deaths, like stress really can affect the cardiovascular system. It can affect every system in our body. Just to really anger, depression, irritability, lack of energy, concentration. You know, those are just the mental things, but also increased blood pressure, heart rate, cholesterol, risk of heart attack, your immune system. When we're stressed out about everything going in the world right now. Guess what? We're actually lowering our immune system, make us more susceptible to what is happening. Now on the physical side, for guys, you know, lower testosterone in general, aches, pains in our muscles and joints. You know, stress affects everything, and that hormone cortisol, again, it is a cortico, which is, again, it breaks down a lot of different things. So when we take stress, and, you know, here's another example in the power of our emotions and thought, because again, stress it can be a physical stimulus. Like again, when you're lifting a weight, that is a physical stress. A mental stress is when you are, again, thinking of something, living in the past, or even, again, anxiety is living in the future, thinking of something that might happen. We have to learn how to be in the present and the mind. And this is, I love David Goggins. If you haven't read his book, Can't Hurt Me, he is in special forces. He's the only guy in the military to do special forces in each of the branches of the military. He runs ultra marathons, very inspiring guy. But the mind is the most powerful thing in the world. The mind has capabilities that are so unknown, and being able to tap into that is on the other side of suffering. And I truly believe that, because again, if we can because this is something that I experienced when I was going through cancer in the very, very beginning. And it's something I've known this for years in my studies. And I was like, if we can sit here and think about all the bad things that are happening to us, and we can literally cause our body to go in that fight or flight, to shut down our metabolism, to race up our heart rate, our blood pressure, If we can do that from thought alone, why not, if I think the other way, can I not do the opposite? If the power of thought alone can turn my body into a disease cesspool and turn it in, like basically shut down my machine through thought alone, what happens if I push my power of thought in the other direction? What can I become if I do that? And that's what really got me thinking. It's like, okay, let's look into this. Let's research this. And I'm going to talk a lot more about that with a few of the experts that I'm going to be referencing and bringing in. So first, though, I want to break the stigma of mental health. What people think causes depression. Okay, you're weak, lazy, the ability to suck it up. You all are teachers. You have, in this world now, I know, like, even when I was in school, if I were to ask all the kids, like, who is feeling, depressed or has like these types of things going on, like no one would raise their hand, because even just 10 years ago, it was one of those things that we didn't really talk about this. I didn't really even truly know what depression was until I was like in college, and I was like, wait, is that what I'm feeling? Like, I've experienced some of these things, but we don't really talk about it. And again, to really fix an issue, we have to bring awareness. We have to understand what can cause these problems. And that was something that was a really big motivator for me to understand depression, was like, it's not all in our heads. There's a physical aspect to depression. And that's what we're going to kind of talk a little bit about in a moment. So like the Amen Clinic, Dr. Amen is one of the world's leading researchers. He's done over 150,000 SPECT scans now of the brain. So when we look at depression, is it really all just mentally in our head? The answer is no. We can actually see different types of anxiety, depression, all on these different SPECT scans. Inflammatory marks, combination, anxiety and depression, overfocus. So again, like the prefrontal cortex, like these different areas that are super inflamed. And there's also underactive parts of the brain as well. So when we see the physical brain and how it's being affected by these mental illnesses and mental things, how can we, now it gives us a better map of how we can work on this. Because again, like, does one cause the other? Like, the chicken comes before the egg, or the egg before the chicken? So what if it's a combination of both? Now this next one, same thing, but now we're looking at ADD, which is another interesting one, because there's 7 different types of ADD. The problem is, when most of these kids, they tell their parents they can't focus, they go to their physician, the physician just signs them a script for Ritalin, or signs them a script for Adderall. Did that physician scan their brain and say, okay, based on what your brain is, you need this type of medication, or you need a combination, a little bit of this or a little bit of that? My girlfriend actually went to the Amen Clinic and got one of their SPECT scans. She has a whole binder just on her brain. It's one of the most fascinating things that I've gotten to look into. Not just because it's my fiance and she's, amazing, but it's like they actually could tell a lot of her history by looking at her brain. It was like a map of her life. Not just, physical things that happen, but emotional things, traumas that happen. A lot can be told from these scans of the brain. And again, it's just about bringing awareness. It's not something, again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to be prescribing these kids or telling them to do anything, or even the same for you all who do face different types of depression and anxiety, because it affects us all. What I'm trying to do is to bring in awareness, to tell you, hey, these are things that we can look into, you can look into, but here's how you can treat your body just by giving it the fuel that it needs. Because a lot of these things are because our brains are deficient, our bodies are deficient in the nutrients. Again, if our brain in these different areas, like right here, especially on these side, if we're not getting enough fuel to that part of the brain, you're going to be more susceptible to these types of forms of depression and anxiety. It's the same thing with our muscles. If our muscles are deficient in, again, our electrolytes, what happens? You start jogging for the first time in a while and you get a cramp in your hamstring. What do you think's happening inside of your brain? It's the same concept. Our brain, it's not a muscle, but it's extremely funny how close it is to a muscle when it comes to function. And again, I'm going to be making comparisons all the time. Now, we know that stress is bad. How do we actually fight it? Dr. John Russin's a guy I follow. You can follow him on Instagram. He's an amazing page. Like, he's actually he's a exercise science guy, PhD, but he talks a lot about this as well. We're going to be doing different forms of this as well. Sleep, breathing, meditation, sunlight, sauna, steam, laughing, prayer, gratitude, the science of gratitude. We will get into that later, but there's a lot of things that we can do right now to work on our stress. We have all the knowledge, but again, it's creating that mindset of, okay, we're aware of what's happening. Now we're going to make that change. The power of breath. Now we're getting into the good stuff. This first guy I'm going to talk about is Wim Hof. Maybe some of you have heard of him. Wim Hof is probably one of the most studied human beings on the planet right now. He broke 26 world records. He climbed Mount Everest without a shirt, in shorts and shoes. He did a half marathon in the Arctic Circle, again, without shoes for that one. He did a full marathon in the Gobi Desert without water. He's done amazing things, basically to prove the power of the human mind and the breath. We're going to talk a little bit about some of his studies. So, shocking the system. Oops, sorry, apologize. There we go. This is one of his things. He was put into an ice chamber. They put monitors on him. One of his most fantastic studies is his ability to control the immune system through his thought and his breath. They took 12 individuals on the control group. This was at Emory University. I have to verify that. But what they did was they had two groups, and both groups were basically injected with an endotoxin. Basically, as a form of E. coli. And if any of you guys know what that's like, again, you are going to have fever, vomiting out the other end. It's a horrible time. So what Wim Hof stated, how he was able to do all these feats of strength and mental strength. People thought he was robotic. He's like, I can teach anybody to do this. You can control the autonomic nervous system to control your immune system, function, and mind. It's all through the breath. So during that experiment, that study, both groups were injected with the endotoxin. His group was sitting in the cold. I believe they were in an ice bath, and they were breathing. The other group was just normal, but they were injected. 100% of that group that was by them, like just again, not the study group, it was the control. They all got sick. Some had very varying side effects, but as you know, E. coli can be it can even be deadly. Their group, the group that breathed, again, because by stimulating the autonomic nervous system, stimulating a controlled stress response, they fought off, and not a single person in that group got sick after being injected with the E. coli. And it was because what that stress is, think of your brain as a muscle. When you go to the gym, you're taking that dumbbell, you're curling it, you are applying a controlled stress, a biomechanical stress to that bicep. And in turn, that bicep is going to tear itself apart on a very cellular level. And then over the course of the day, you rebuild that muscle bigger and stronger. That is a controlled stress that we're putting on your muscle. What they did in there, and again, just to make a comparison to help understand how that works, they had a controlled stress where, again, through this breathing technique, now the Wim Hof breathing technique is a little more intense, but basically you are stimulating the autonomic, you're forcing more oxygen in and increasing your CO2 levels. Because what you're doing is almost like someone who's having a panic attack, where, remember the old school, if someone's having a panic attack, they would breathe into a paper bag, like those brown paper bags. And what that does is putting more CO2 back into their body. So by doing this, they're increasing the acidity level of their body. And then at the very end, it's doing what's called an air hunger drill. And they're holding that breath. And we're going to be actually doing this together in a minute. They're stimulating us. Again, it's a controlled stress response from the brain to light up the immune system, to light up basically our temperature. We're getting our body changing very rapidly. But this has significant impacts on our overall mental health and physical health as well. Just breathing, actually cold exposure, it basically lightens up the brain. There's a lot of really cool stuff that's coming out with this. And that's what brings me to my next guy, James Nestor. And I recommend this book to anybody listening. breath. It is a very easy to listen to book. He's not a scientist. He is a journalist who is part of the Stanford studies, and he talks a lot about, like, that's most of his book. But he traveled the world, talking and speaking with different, pulmonauts, different yogis, different people like who have conquered the breath. Another interesting group of people he talked to was in Greece, where people have been diving for thousands of years without any gear. They literally take a breath and can go under and hold their breath for 5 to 7, 9 minutes, some of them. It's incredible what they do. And there's a lot of different breathing techniques in his book, and that I'm going to be sharing. And these are going to be like different weeks. Every week we're going to pick a different breathing technique to introduce to the students. And it's getting them to understand, hey, how we can use different forms of breath for different areas or different times of our day. And, when we're feeling stressed, here's a breathing technique for that. If we're trying to be more focused, here's a breathing technique for that. And I kind of highlighted some of these, like alternative nostril breathing. This is one that actually has been shown to and proven scientifically to lower blood pressure, lower heart rate, lower breath rate. Breathing coordination. This will actually be a fun one. I think the kids are like, you take a deep breath and you just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Like, you keep repeating that as many times as you can. And you're trying to elongate your exhale as long as humanly possible. But again, by counting out loud, you're actually tricking your brain not to think about, okay, I need to take a breath of air. Buteyko breathing, air hunger drills. A lot of our inability to handle mental stress is because of our oxygen and CO2 levels in our brain. Again, if our prefrontal cortex, again, this is the thinking part of the brain. If we're deficient in certain nutrients, and that includes, again, either too much oxygen, it's going to overstimulate certain parts of the brain, and other are going to be understimulated, meaning that, again, we're not going to have full mental control. So again, by controlling the breath, not only are we taking the focus away from that external stimulus, but we're bringing it back to the body. There's another, like, conscious breathing anchor. There's so many amazing things. And again, if you guys are like me, like, I have had a congested nose my entire life, and I've actually had sleep apnea. I've had, I did snore my entire life. And that's why you can ask my fiance, she'll tell you that, like, yeah, it was pretty bad. I never got the sleep apnea machine. I never wanted to kind of sleep. Like, I knew I've always had it, but I've actually corrected my entire life of bad breathing and sleeping through these drills. And actually, like, even just, again, taping my mouth shut at night, forcing my body to breathe through its nose. Because, again, our inside of our nose, this nasal tissue, it's erectile tissue. So again, we're clogged up and we think it's allergies. We think it's all this inside, what some of it can be. But again, when our body is too much oxygen, these pathways close. So if we're chronic mouth breathers, we're going to have more congestion in our nasal passages. So what the air hunger drill does is it stimulates that CO2 receptor. It's like our body's like, oh God, we have so much CO2. We need to, again, release nitric oxide, which opens up our blood vessels. Because again, this is erectile tissue. When we open up these blood vessels, we can actually breathe through our nose again. So I'm going to teach you that one as well. And there's all these different forms of breathing that are going to help our bodies get to where we want to go and to handle different stresses that come at us. So the power of the mind, how do we make change? We're bringing that question back from the beginning. Because again, it all goes back to that, building the super brain. There's a lot of amazing people that I'm going to bring into this program. Jim Kwik, he teaches a lot of celebrity. Like, he is an amazing guy when it comes to his brain knowledge. He worked with some of the smartest people on the planet. But he can be in a conference, and one of the things that he does to show you how, because again, he had a very serious brain injury when he was younger, failed school, but again, he rebuilt his brain like I build my muscles. And now I've been taking his courses. It's like, you can train your brain just like you train your body. But there's things that you have to do. And it's not just, again, like exercise, it's drinking water. There's a really fun one, brushing your teeth with the opposite hand, do something different. You have to stimulate different areas of the brain. There's things that we can be drinking, different teas, like we talk about journaling, HIIT, exercise, high intensity interval training, get oxygen into your brain, get the blood actually flowing. Breathing is great, but now put that into action. Reading an actual book, not on a screen, because again, blue light is one of the three lights are different. Again, those cones that we have in our eyes, like the different light sensors. Again, we need to get away from this this blue screen. And it's hard because you all are on this 8 to 10 hours a day. You're teaching. The kids are on this. We have to train our body how to deal with that type of stress response. Again, that is just a different stress response on the brain. Again, you're in front of a screen all day. Your eyes need a break. Your brain needs a break. We have to teach you how to actually do that. And if you're like, workaholic, like some of us, like, hey, how can we actually take a 5-minute break, just breathe, reset our brain, reset our body, and boom, get back at it. So these are all the different tools that I'm going to teach you. And this is actually some fun for the students as well, because again, they are struggling with this. I don't have to tell you, you're all the ones who are teaching them. I hear this because I've not just my mom's a teacher. I work with a lot of teachers, friends that are teachers. We need tools. Mel Robbins, Jim Quick, the 5-second rule. Okay, you want to hit that snooze button? No, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Get up, get out of bed, move. We have to give them these tools. And this is something that's going to work for you as well. She has a couple amazing books, like Mel Robbins. You should watch her videos. But it's making that decision. Step 1, when you feel an instinct, boom, that urge, whether you're opening up the refrigerator, like getting ready to grab that ice cream out of the freezer, is like, no, again, that's that impulse, that instinct. Now it's like, tie the instinct to a goal. Is eating that going to take me one step closer to my goals or one step away? Is this going to make me better or is this going to make me worse? And then step 3, you have to actually push yourself. Count down, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, boom, put it back in, don't touch it. Because again, if you don't do that within 5 seconds, your brain, again, remember, our brain's meant to, protect ourselves. It likes to go back to homeostasis. It likes what's comfortable. If you don't put that back, if you don't say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go, your brain will trick you in that amount of time saying, okay, it's okay if you eat that. I mean, what's going to hurt? It's just one night, How many times have we done that throughout our lives? How many times that we're trying to break a habit or make a new habit, and we have those old impulses of ourselves, that old version of ourselves basically saying, oh, it's okay. Do you need, it's cold outside. We don't need to go out for a run, or why get up, go to the gym? It's warm inside. We don't need to do this. No, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, get up and go. So these are some of the tools that I want to give to you, give to the kids, the students, to make big changes in their life. Next one is, meditation, demystifying it. This is what honestly, if you were to ask me my opinion years ago of like, what is meditation? I'd think something like this, I can't do that. Like I could never, I don't know. It just seemed weird to me, but I was like, I saw the benefit of it. And it wasn't until I really started studying it and honestly, like, what is it really? It's understanding being in the present. When we live in the past, we can stress ourselves out. We live in the future, we can give ourselves anxiety. But like, what is meditation really? It's about being present, being centered, being within yourself. And for a lot of people, they're actually not okay with themselves. And here's the thing, it's learning to be okay. And that's like what the personal development is all about. But what meditation does is bringing you back to where you are now. Again, being grateful, being appreciative, putting your brain in a very different state. Because if you are feeling stressed, if you're just having that kind of anxiety attack, stop what you're doing, start to breathe, count your breath, and just get present with yourself. Because again, that is the easiest form of meditation. And again, this is said by a monk. The easiest form of meditation is just count your breath. Close your eyes and just count your breath. 1, 2, 3, exhale, 1, 2, 3. Or again, we're going to show you a lot more, different techniques and more efficient, what types of breathings are the best. But it doesn't matter if you don't know all of that. Just breathe. 1-to-1 ratio. Inhale for 4, exhale for 4. Start off small. This is something that we're going to build off of. Again, your first day ever being in the gym, you didn't max out on a deadlift and try to break a world record. You had to start somewhere. It's the same thing when it comes to the mind. This is like a weight training program for your brain. You start small and you gradually build. You build a little bit on top of a little bit on top of a little bit. Harvard studies on meditation and mindfulness. This is some of the most mind-blowing stuff because I love studying this type of science, especially when I see institutes like Harvard Medical, Johns Hopkins, Penn University, a lot of these major big, even Cambridge. There's some big hitters that are really kind of looking at, these things that have been taught to us as like, woo-woo science or pseudosciences and all this and that. But Herbert Benson, associate professor of medicine at Harvard Medical, he went out to India. He went in to Tibet, and they spoke with these monks, and they saw them. And actually, one of the exercises they did, these monks, there's a couple groups. One just sat in. Basically, they were, wearing not even a full, gown. They just kind of had their loincloth, and they literally sat in the snow. They had another group take a wet cloth and wrapped it around them, and then they went and sat in the snow. And what they watched was through meditation, through the power of the mind, not only were these monks able to increase their body temperature, but the monks who were wearing that, basically that wet towel around them, that wet cloth, steam started coming out of it. They noticed that not only could they increase their internal temperature, they could increase the outer temperature of their body through breath. And that's the not just the Buteyko method, but the Tummo breathing, which is like the Wim Hof does Tummo and combines that with the Buteyko. But they were able to, through the mind, sit out in the mountains of Tibet and basically heat their bodies in the area around them. And not only that, they looked at their heart rate, they looked at their blood pressure, they looked at a lot of different metrics, and they saw all of those decrease as they started breathing. And they brought out and they were able to control those different metrics. So his big thing was, if they can do it, why can't we do it to some form? Because again, you don't need to be a monk in Tibet on top of a mountain in order to control your blood pressure. You could be an average everyday Joe, anybody, just sit down in your chair, learn how to breathe, put your focus on something, and you can achieve that. But you have to have the mindset. You have to have the desire to make that change. Dr. Joe Dispenza's research on the human mind and brain, these are two amazing books, The Placebo Effect, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. He has an amazing series called Rewired. I probably watched that maybe like 2 or 3 times. Some episodes like 4. But it's so amazing to see what he does as a mental health professional and meditation. So when you go to one of his conferences, you start off by wearing a big skull cap that has about 100 wires to it. They monitor your brain. They take a lot of metrics. And as you go through the weekend, you learn how mindfulness, you learn how to meditate, you learn how to breathe. And by the end of that, at the end of that conference, they basically do, again, they do another test. They see you and they can actually show you your before and afters of how your physical brain in just a few days, how you can rewire your nervous system. Again, we have over 100 billion neural connections in our brain. Everything you do on a daily basis will determine where those brain cells go. If you start going to the gym, so again, another muscle analogy here. Once you start lifting those weights, what's happening in your brain? The first thing is not happening in your muscles. The first physiological effect when you start weight training or even exercise, it's in your brain. You're creating a stronger neural connection to those muscles that you're using. Same thing with a habit. Any type of habit you're trying to recreate, you're basically trying to take these well and grown nerve cells and you're trying to put it in another direction. And they're moving things. These are cells that can rewire themselves based on our actions and our thoughts. So that's why it's like you have to think it, you have to feel it, the power of emotion. That emotion, that why factor we talked about, that's what's driving you to do that. And then it's the doing. Head, heart, hands. I call it H cube, the H cube method. Head, heart, hands. You have to think it, feel it, do it. Because that's how you make a little habit into a permanent habit. That's making something that is now a part of your lifestyle. Even in my facility, what I do for a living, I don't give people diet plans. I don't give them just workout plans. I teach them lifestyle changes. That is how you give someone a permanent change. Not just telling you, okay, here's the best diet plan for this or that. No, it's how can we make little habit changes? How can we start adding this in and make it consistent? Because again, you are your thoughts. And when we think in a very stressed state and we're always in that, Like, why is it so hard to break out of a depression? And one of his very famous, talks is actually on, this subject of the subconscious mind, where we have about 80 to 90,000 thoughts a day subconsciously, like things that, we can't always even see all these things going on. Our brain, every one of our receptors is taking in data every second of the day. Right now it's happening for you, for me. A lot of those thoughts that are happening on a subconscious level, if we are 90 to 95% of who we were the day before, so all of those thoughts, those 80 to 90,000 thoughts, 90% of them were from the day before. So if we're in a depressed state and we are not trying, like we're not actively trying to break out of that, or we're not learning how to take better care of our health, and again, finding different ways to improve ourselves, we are stuck in that vicious cycle. And that's what makes it so hard to get out of. Because again, we're fighting against 90% of those thoughts. That's over, 90%, that's roughly like 78,000 to 82,000 thoughts a day that we're fighting, that old version of ourselves. So again, how do we break that? It starts with a thought. It starts with an idea. Write down your goals. What do you want? Now, why do you want it? Why is it important that you get to that goal? What is that driving factor? Then you have to start doing it, because now you're introducing all those new thoughts, those new patterns into that mix of 82,000 thoughts from the day before. And that's how you overcome. And that's how, again, it doesn't happen overnight. Some people think that change happens like, you can have that conscious thought to make a change, but to actually become a whole new person, to kind of reach where you want to go, it is a journey. It just doesn't happen overnight. So when we realize that, again, that success model I showed you in the beginning, point A to point B, there's going to be ups, there's going to be downs. But as long as we make a little bit of progress each and every day, that is how we reach true success in life. So what happens when we combine the power of the breath and the power of the mind? So here's what I want to try with y'all. So we're going to start with a very basic technique. And I really want y'all to really think, to participate in this. This is something that you can do every day. If you want to, again, like compete against yourself, this is something you should do every morning to see how well you did the day before with your overall health. This came from somebody who, a very successful person, who would wake up in the morning. He would do this. It's basically, it's an air hunger drill. So this actually is what's going to help you learn how to breathe throughout your nose. Because again, we are tricking our brain. This is a controlled stress. We are tricking our brain into thinking that we are not suffocating, but we're tricking our brain into thinking that we're not getting any oxygen, that we're not having any air. And that in turn releases nitric oxide into our body to open up our blood vessels and open up our nasal passages. So first thing in the morning when you get out of bed, and have a timer handy, which I have mine right here. So when we all do this together, I'm going to time us, and I want you to see how well you do. And then I will explain on the times. Excuse me. So what's going to happen? So I'm just going to demonstrate real quick, and then we're going to all do it together. So you're going to take a very slow inhale, filling up the lungs. You're going to exhale completely. Pinch your nose. And you're just going to hold. Now that moment, when you feel that you desperately need air, do not gasp, because then again, now you're stimulating the amygdala, the fear center of our brain. So once you feel that desperate need for air, we're again, control your breath. Remember, this is like a gym. Like we are controlling the stress response to our brain to elicit a certain hormone. We are trying to do this to open up our nasal passages and to basically get more blood flow and O2 in through the body. So we're all going to do this together. And I'm going to have now I know since I'm sharing my screen, maybe you all will not be able to see fully. You are able to see my actual. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the timer up to the camera. So when I give you guys the instructions, I'm going to hit the start button. And I want you, again, just to hold your breath. Like we're going to inhale together. We're going to exhale together. And then I'll tell you to pinch your nose. When I tell you to pinch your nose, you're going to watch the clock. So whenever you feel the need that you need to breathe, Do not, do not gasp. Slowly inhale, but look at the number where you had to stop at. And I want you to write down that number. Okay? Now, before I do this, does anybody have any questions? All right, so we're going to go ahead and give this a shot. All right. So we're going to do a big inhale through the nose, and I'm going to say it out loud. And then I'm going to say, now exhale. And I'll say, pinch your nose. And right when I say pinch your nose, I'm going to start the timer. And you're just going to watch. So I'm going to make sure that my timer is in the camera view so you can actually see it. And if it's actually easier for you all, if you have your own cell phone out, if you want to time it yourself, I'm just going to do this. If it's easier for you to look at yours, that'll be better. All right, so ready. We are going to slowly inhale. Exhale. Push it all out, push it all out, push it all out. Now hold your nose. Timer starts. Just hold. Keep holding, keep holding. When you feel the need to breathe, slowly inhale. When everybody lets go of their nose, I will stop the clock. Remember, you're on a full exhale. You're not breathing. Oh, wow. Some of y'all are doing great. Look at that. All right, I'm just going to keep it going because I know some people don't have their cameras on, but I'm going to give you a couple seconds. If you're still holding, all right. And I will stop because if you go past the minute mark, you're already champions on that one. So I will and stop. Okay. So if you are in the single digits or the low teens, you have a very low CO2 tolerance. If you made it into the high teens, mid 20s, you're still on the lower end. Ultimately, your goal is to get to 45 seconds. I know that sounds crazy, but just like the first time you ever lifted a weight, it did not come overnight. It takes time. But if you are in that low end, you know that your brain needs more of that tolerance because again, when we have a low CO2 tolerance, we also have a low stress tolerance. So we are more susceptible to stress. So these little tools of the breathing techniques, this is something that you can do actually repeatedly and see how you are throughout the day. And also, like, when the guy that I learned this from, it was like, you can see how you did the day before. So let's say if you had a really bad day with your diet, you didn't sleep enough, you might have a lower number compared to if you got a full night's rest, you ate very well the day before, you exercised. So again, you can really test yourself to see where you're at. Because again, if you're in the mid 20s, that's okay. 30s is much better. But the main goal is to be around 45 seconds. Because again, that is going to give us a higher stress tolerance and just overall better health in general. So this is the plan for the next 14 to 16 weeks, however long that we're going to make this program for the semester. My goal is each Tuesday, we're going to play a recorded 8 to 12 minute video lesson. We're going to introduce a breathing technique. So every Tuesday, there's going to be 2 parts of this video. The first part is going to be a breathing technique with some type of personal development. So it's like we're going to breathe, we're going to prime our brain, get our mindset ready for the day. And I'm going to more give them something like personal development wise, finding their goals, defining their why, things like that. Something that's going to get them out of bed, get them moving, stimulate their brains. That way they're not just rolling out of bed, hitting the Google Meet button and just rolling into your class. So our goal is to get these kids up, get them moving, get them breathing, stimulate their brains in different ways. Part 2 of the video is basically I'm going to kind of do what we did today, where I'm going to pick one of those random lessons. All right, we're going to talk about the brain-heart connection. We're going to talk about the microbiome today. We're going to talk about this or that, a little health lesson, and I'm going to make it fun. Make it really, again, something that they can interact with, like the breathing technique, compete with their, kind of doing some little fun drills. And that's going to be every Tuesday. Every Wednesday through Friday is just going to be a clip of the breathing technique that we learned from that Tuesday lesson. So it's, Again, get them moving every morning, because again, this is about creating habits. If we can get them doing it every day, and again, even during their breaks, and even if again you have a class and they're feeling like a little, mentally like not there right there, hey guys, let's get up. Boom, let's just do this breathing technique. Let's just get moving. Boom, prime them for your class. This can be something, again, it could be 30 to 60 seconds, not even that long. But it could be anything. Now in the morning though, this will be during, I believe it's called your pride time. We were talking about this. And then every Friday at 4 p.m., either on Facebook, Instagram, because I know those young kids are not on Facebook anymore, Instagram, YouTube Live, I'll be covering the lesson of the week. So any questions, we're going to be going over the challenge for the weekend. And I wanted to be able to interact with you all, because I do run my own business. I own Rock Fitness and Performance. I do a lot of things. So like in the morning, I can't be live and doing this type of stuff, but around 4 p.m. Friday, I can. So it's like I want to be able to not just tell you guys what to do. I want to be going through this with you. I want to be helping you guys, through this new, again, personal development program that we're putting together. And that's kind of my plan right now, and that's why I would love your feedback. Not just on what I'm trying to do, but also even on this presentation. I want to see where we can improve, because again, I'm going to be doing this like a very small version every morning, or just basically it's on Tuesday mornings, but there'll be a breathing technique that they're going to be doing every morning to get their day started. So we're open to suggestions, and this is going to be the Q&A part. We would like to see, what do you guys want to see? I even offered, I was talking to my mom last night about, it's like, I would love to do like a teacher boot camp for you guys. Like maybe we can set up a little, something on Mondays before you guys start your teacher work day. And it's like, hey, if we can do like, a little in-home, type of workout, or again, even like a stretching, breathing video, or again, we can just basically get you guys primed for the day. It doesn't have to be like a workout. I want to see how I can help you succeed with your goals as teachers, because I know it's not just hard on them. This is something new for you all as well. You had to adapt with the circumstances of the world. And I know, again, it's just as much of a struggle for you as it is a struggle for these kids to be as active, be as visual or mentally stimulated, like in learning. So what I'm trying to do is to really give back, and I want to teach you all this and see how can we make the best out of this situation. Because it's something that, I've had to learn the hard way in many different ways. Like, hey, how can we take something that's, negative in a sense, or, from how people perceive it, to how can we come out better? How can we come out stronger? And that's why I'm asking these questions. Like, what can we do to help you as teachers succeed? And also, what can I do to help these kids succeed? So that will be the, so now I guess we're open to questions. I'm going to leave this information, because we are going to send out a little survey at the end with some of these questions, kind of getting your feedback and input. And also it'll have my contact information, because I am going to be open. I do all different types of health and fitness consults for free. I'm opening that to all teachers, where I want to help you guys. And again, if you're not comfortable asking certain questions in a group setting, I am 100% open and happy to sit down with you and really get to know you and see how I can maybe help you with some of these things. So that is it for my presentation, the physical presentation. I'm going to go ahead and stop this now. So anybody, I am open to feedback, open to questions. If anybody wanted to learn a little bit more about this, I'm more than happy to explain any parts of the presentation. I'm just going to let this kind of be an open session for discussion or in questions.
Thank you, Sam. I saw one question on here. Are there specific foods that can improve depression and replace pharmaceuticals?
So that would be a question, like, the answer is it can kind of go both ways. Yes, there are foods, if you are deficient in many, let's say, vitamins and minerals, like let's say B vitamins, for instance. You all know all the B vitamins. They are the precursors to adenosine triphosphate, which is, ATP, biology class, everyone. Hey, energy. So, when we don't have energy, we are more susceptible to depression. So to say like, okay, if you guys eat more oranges, you're not going to have depression. I can't say that as a health professional. What I can say, though, is there are certain foods that you can take in, more alkaline-based foods, that if you do that, let's say if you do have, let's say, like a higher pH level in your brain, which again, if you have those inflammatory marks for that we saw in those brain scans, you can be more susceptible to depression. A lot more alkaline foods will bring down inflammatory responses. So yes, there are certain foods that can do that. Again, I'm more than happy to kind of know on a more specific case what's going on, and I can maybe kind of point you in the right direction with that. But again, like my job as a nutritionist, again, I do have a degree in this. It's really, again, I can't say, this is better than pharmaceutical. Eastern and Western medicine has its purpose and they can work together. And that's what a lot of the best professionals in the world really do now. So it's about understanding the body, knowing where your deficiencies are. And from there, we create you a very specific plan that can kind of help you with that.
Thank you very much. Do you have any other questions? You can feel free to just shout it out or put it in the chat.
I mean, I was just I totally agree that having proper nutrition really does help for depression. I don't want to also, I don't think that just nutrition can cure any depression. And the only way I say that is because my mom suffers from depression her whole life, and she has read Joe Dispenza's books and stuff, but she incorrectly assumed that she could just focus on the nutrition aspect of it and then not take her medication, and that did not go well. So I think it's important, like you said, that both go together, East and Western medicine, not just, yeah.
Correct. And that can be a very big misconception. And I've heard this a lot. And it's when we look at the triad of health that I propose, a lot of people focus on one side at a time. Mental health professionals like psychiatrists, okay, let's just prescribe you certain drugs that'll help with this. But are you looking at the other two sides of the triangle? Is your physical body not moving enough? Where again, the brain's not getting stimulated enough. Therefore, how are you supposed to fight depression? It's I give the analogy, it's like you're trying to swim in a river with rocks tied to your legs. It's like you're already being pulled down by something like depression. It's but if you're not eating right, if you're not drinking enough water, you're not getting enough sleep, how do you expect to fight depression and anxiety? And again, a lot of these kids, I know their diets aren't right now. They're just rolling out of bed, signing in. Are they getting up and exercising first thing in the morning? Probably not. So it's if we can give them some of these tools and give them this knowledge, it's going to help them, and help all of you as well. Make the most out of the situation. Now, I think I saw a question in the comment or the chat here. Oh, this I pulled up. Speaking of Western, I saw this one. Okay, what do you think of acupuncture? I think it can have really good health benefits. Again, this is another topic, going into that triad of health. If we look at what does acupuncture do, it's one of many different stimuluses on the brain that help relieve muscle tension and pain. It can also do a lot of other things. I think, there's a bad stigma with acupuncture because they think okay, if I just do this one side of the triangle, that I can fix all these other issues. If you still eat horribly, you don't get enough sleep, you treat your body like garbage, and again, even if you have a lot of stress, you can do acupuncture every day and it's not going to help with the specific problem if you allow your body to go back into the environment that brought it there in the first place. So again, acupuncture is amazing because I've done it. I still kind of do a little bit here and there. It's one of many stimuluses that we kind of do a version of that with one of our doctors that works in my facility. Actually, my mom did. We certain needling to stimulate different sensories to the brain, so it can be very, very beneficial. All right. So are there any specific breathing, lifestyle, nutrition techniques to decrease cortisol? Yeah, so all of those techniques that I showed in the presentation, which this will be recorded, and you can, maybe what we'll do is with some of the stuff we'll send out, I'll give you a lot of these resources. Anybody should just download on Audible, you can listen to Breath by James Nestor. It's actually easier to listen to, but any one of those, because he was studied at Stanford University, and they measured all of that. They took blood work, heart rate, blood pressure, cholesterol, everything. And what they did for the first 10 days for him and the other guy, who is the owner of Conscious Breathing, the other reference I'm going to give you all, they basically clogged their nose for 10 days straight. So it forced them to mouth breathe. And they saw how all of those numbers, their cortisol levels, everything went up. Literally, they went from being perfect sleepers to having sleep apnea and snoring within a day, because of mouth breathing. And that's why he's so passionate about what he does. Because like after the 10 days, because they had to stuff their noses with, well, all sorts of things, basically to keep it from, but what they did after that was they opened up the nasal passages, they taped their mouth shuts during sleep. And because of their nasal breathing and some of those different techniques they talked about, they were able to decrease those different, again, cortisol levels. But in turn, it's because they brought down the stress. Because they brought down the stress, that's what brought down the cortisol, but also the blood pressure. Their heart rate went back to normal. All of those things increased when they started mouth breathing. So again, the single best thing you can do is like go on Amazon, order conscious breathing sleep tape. I tape my mouth shut every night. And within a couple weeks, I corrected over 20 years of bad sleep. Like, again, I didn't know that I was a mouth breather. Like, I mean, I know I breathe through my mouth, but I didn't realize how bad, like I would wake up tired after I got, the 8 hours of sleep. If you get 8 hours of sleep, no, if you get 8 hours of mouth breathing sleep, you're going to wake up tired. You're not going to have as much energy as you want. So I hope I answered all of that. And again, I'm more than happy. You guys will have my contact information. Like, again, I will meet with everyone individually to kind of, if any of your individual problems or things that you're dealing with, I'm more than happy to help with that. Because again, I want to help you guys so you can, again, be 110%, for your students. And then this is a lot of the knowledge I want to give them as well. Because all these different techniques is something that you can do right now. Like that, the air hunger drill. Start the simple breathing technique of when you feel stressed, I call it the 4 squared. Breathe in for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4. 4 squared. If you do that, that is an automatic stress reliever because, again, that gets more oxygen into the right parts of the brain. It will increase our CO2 tolerance. And that's actually one that a lot of monks use. And it's funny because monks used it, but also Navy SEALs use the 4 squared method as well. So it is a very commonly used breathing method that people use to, again, control their mind. So if you're feeling stressed, 4 squared, and then test your air hunger. Count that. So that is a simple technique. Now the sleep tape, I use conscious breathing. He was the other guy who was in the Stanford study with the James Nestor. You can go on Amazon. So actually just type it in there. Actually, I'm going to do is I might find the link. So yeah, search just conscious breathing sleep tape, and you can find either on Amazon. You can actually go to his website and order it. But yeah, that's something that we use. And but honestly, people use medical tape. I think my dad used like a Band-Aid before. Like he'll just go, for me, because like my body wants to mouth breathe at night, like I have to put the full tape, but it's actually a really, really interesting concept because I realized from doing that, like I used to wake up really dry mouth, tired, but also like I was really like, I just wasn't breathing properly throughout the day. And I was almost like expanding and pushing out my stomach as I breathed. And as I went through that book and I learned, I was like, I'm breathing up into my diaphragm now. It's like when you control that breath, that's one of the simplest things that you can do to improve your health. Again, because maybe you might not be able to go to the gym 3 days a week right now. Maybe it's like, hey, but what is the simplest thing you can do? It's just learn how to nasal breathe. And if your nose is stuffed, do those air hunger drills. A lot of this is what we're going to be teaching, throughout the semester. It's going to be a part of, again, hopefully every Tuesday morning, it'll be part of the Pride Time. Again, just a simple 8 to 12 minutes. We're going to talk about the breathing, talk about health, and just give them personal development. Give them something to really stimulate them and get them going in the morning and get them ready for their day. And again, give them some tools to use so when they are feeling stressed out, they do have those anxiety moments like, hey, here's what you can do. So that is my goal, and that's what I want to accomplish with this program. Any other questions? All right. My contact. Oh, thank you.
Oh, go ahead, Sam. Go ahead. Nope, you're good.
My contact information will be there. You can reach out. We'll be, again, setting all this up. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you all again.
Thank you so much, Sam. And teachers, we're going to be sending out information about getting Sam's lessons into our Pride Time soon. So the wheels are in motion. So definitely be on the lookout for that. And we're definitely so excited, Sam, for you to present to our students and get this information out, both the teachers and the students. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it. And teachers, we're also going to be having this recording emailed to you guys. And any other information. So be on the lookout for that as well. And thank you for spending your snow day with us today.
Yes, thank you all for coming. I do appreciate it. I hope you got something out of this. And I look forward to doing this again.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thank you.